Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Rami Maysami, and I'm the Dean of School of Business here at University of North Carolina at Pembroke. You have seen me in some of the other videos for this class, and you have heard my voice on the PowerPoints. Before coming back to the US, I lived and worked in Singapore for about 9 years, and that's where I met my two guests, Dr. Lydia Gunn and Ms. Joanne Koh. They are going to be talking to you about their experiences about Malaysia and Singapore. And I will just ask them to give a brief introduction to themselves. Lydia?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lydia Gunn. I'm professor of economics at School of Business, University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I've been here for about 7 years, and I'm originally born and raised in Malaysia, and had worked in Singapore and other parts of Southeast Asia for at least 9 years as professor as well. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. Ms. Koh or Joanne?
Hi, I'm Joanne Koh, and I'm actually a graduate of UNCP, both in the bachelor's and a master's. I now teach psychology and counseling at Sand Hills Community College in Moore County. And I also teach hospitality based on my 17 years of experience in the hospitality industry.
Thank you both for being here. I just want to have an informal conversation with you. I know everybody has watched your videos, which were a little bit more formal introduction to the countries. Let me start with Joanne. I want to talk a little bit about the role of culture in economy. In your opinion, how do you think the culture of Singapore has affected the way the country has developed in the last few years?
Singapore, it's like a mini US. It's a mixed pot of different cultures mixed into one. And it's always competition among the people, between the people, and transitioning from a colony to an independent country, and then only having gained independence in 1965, they have gained this culture of being the best in everything. And therefore, I think the culture affects its economy in the sense of if they want to do something, they want to be the best in something, and therefore always gaining success in the things that they do.
Yes, I noticed when I was there that everything is very fast-paced and everybody's always trying to do more than one person can, and some people say that's why I have turned to be this way. How about Malaysia, Lydia? Is it as fast-paced as Singapore is?
Well, as compared to Singapore, Malaysia is a lot more slow. You could, people drive slower. You wouldn't have to worry about overtaking them, or, they're not as competitive. They're more relax and lay back a little bit. Some of you have watched the PowerPoints earlier that in my earlier presentations. Malaysia is also a very diverse country with a lot of ethnicities, ethnic groups. The Malay, for example, make up about 50%, the Chinese about 25% of the population, Indians about 7%, and they all live in harmony. Basically, they contribute to various economic sector of the society since independence. For example, the Malay traditionally were like farmer in paddy field, and the Chinese were tin miners. And of course, nowadays, Chinese make up about, even though 1/3 of the population, but they control about anywhere between 70 to 90% of the market capitalizations, and but still the various ethnic groups, they live in harmony and they work with each other, and it's a great society.
Singapore is about the same in terms of their ethnicity, but the numbers are different. Is that so?
Yeah, the Chinese, it's the biggest population in Singapore, followed by the Malays and Indians and the others, mainly the Eurasians. And like what Lydia said, we live in harmony, and I don't think that's a by chance thing. We live in harmony because of the education system, because of the way the government has shaped the country, because of how we've been taught from young that the country is one people and not different races. And of course, having said all this, we must not forget to mention the leader of the country since the independence, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, who I believe is the major difference between the two countries, why one has achieved success easier and faster than the other.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about that. Singapore obviously went through the economic development ranks a lot faster than many other countries. It is, the per capita income is probably one of the highest in the world, higher than the US. And all of these happened since independence in 1965. Malaysia has a high rate of economic growth, and it has developed very well. What is a little bit puzzling to some people is that Singapore is a smaller country with a smaller population and no natural resources, whereas Malaysia is a much larger country and they have a lot of natural resources. So what is the reason for the faster trajectory to development for Singapore as compared to Malaysia? Johan, maybe you can start.
I sometimes believe smaller is better. I think the smaller population kind of contributed to the factors of success, because when it's smaller, it's more manageable, and we were very, very lucky to have the same leader that I mentioned before, Lee Kuan Yew, and in a way that the population is not as, the differences between the ethnic groups, the percentages are not as drastically different than Malaysia's. Malaysia has a higher percentage of the native citizens or native, the indigenous people, whereas most of the people in Singapore are immigrants. The natives of the country, they were fishermen. Singapore was a fishing village to start with. So with the immigration mindset, if you want to succeed in this society, if you want to be successful in this society, you have to work hard. And that was what was passed down from Mr. Lee's philosophy. And being small and manageable, and although without natural resources, the resource that Singapore had and still has is people. The people that it's managing very well from 1965, and it developed from a developing country to first world country in less than 30 years.
How is it going in Malaysia?
Well, I think there's a trade-off between development and, the quality of life. To some extent, I feel that, well, Malaysia is a much bigger country with a population of, almost 30 million. And like Joanne says, small size is nice, it's easier to manage. And Malaysia has a big size and, country, a more diverse population. The government is stable. The government is trying to reach out to everybody, but remember that it's very spread out. It's got West Malaysia, it's got East Malaysia, so we got a lot of tropical rainforests. And so, you could control the city, urban population, you could make development happen, but the income inequality still exists today, because no matter what the government tries, I think a big part of the rainforest has to be preserved, and natural resources, would not be able to convert it into modern development. So the trade-off to me is that it's okay, they're slow, but they are trying to achieve this industrialized nation status hopefully by 2018. And the government is working hard to fight the crimes and the corruptions, and which is not a big problem right now. The economy is experiencing high inflation now. The government is doing well to try to bring it lower, and people in general are very vibrant and eager to move forward. And I think everybody is excited to look forward to this industrialized economy status that's coming up. So, like I say, even though we do not have cities image like Singapore, but we have a lot of this greenery. We got a lot of rainforest that it's a great place to relax and to retire. So,
You both made very good points, and I had the pleasure of living in Singapore and traveling extensively through Malaysia, and I noticed some of the things that you are saying. In Singapore, the education system and the role of the government is quite pronounced, and the size of the country is small enough that the government can implement its policies. In Malaysia, when I was traveling there, when you go from one part to another part, sometimes it feels like you are moving from one country to another country. You know, Penang, for example, has a very large Chinese population, and almost everybody speaks in Chinese, whereas when you go to Langkawi, for example, there's going to be a lot more Malays speaking Malay, and of course the official language in Kuala Lumpur is English. Do you think that the fact that Singaporeans adopted English as their official language helped with the economic development?
Without a doubt.
Do you agree with that? What is the official language in Malaysia?
Well, it's still Malay.
It's
Bahasa
Even though in the educational system they had tried to implement it for, I think they go kind of like back and forth. For a few years when I grew up, I remember everything was in English. Everything I studied was in English. And then the next 2 years, everything was in Malay. So I actually did learn the languages, I mean, in various subjects.
Interject with that, actually in Singapore, it's not just English. There are 4 official languages. English and Mandarin are the 2 mainly spoken languages. And Malay and Tamil are also official languages, but I feel that it's mainly because due to the respect to the people, the 4 official races in Singapore. The one remarkable thing that I think Singapore has done for its education system is that everyone speaks at least 2 languages. You must have a first language in school, and you must learn a second language in school. And in certain school systems, you should learn a third language. And I think that is a very, very good foresight by the education system then that makes its people move even further than its neighboring countries.
Okay. I did appreciate the fact that the countries respected various ethnicities and they accepted the fact that different people had to speak different languages. Nonetheless, Singapore has picked English as the official language. So for me, when I lived in Singapore, it was a lot easier to adapt and adjust because that's a language that I speak, whereas in Malaysia, some people could not speak English, especially in remote areas. However, the Malay language is enjoyable and fairly easy to learn, so I picked a little bit of that. Well, anything else that you want to say in closing? Or are we done?
Well, yeah. I think the last thing I want to say is Malaysia is a great country to retire. Singapore, it has this Malaysia My Second Home policy. Basically, if you can invest up to about $130 US per year, minimum investment, if you're less than 50 years old. If you're more than 50 years old, they lower the requirement to like about 103,000 per year. Well, one time, excuse me. And you get a visa of long stay up to 10 years. I mean, that's wonderful. And
Really?
It's got a lot of this tropical rainforest. Who can resist that? So that's my last thought.
Any promotion of Singapore as a place to live?
Quite the contrary, I don't think Singapore is the best place to retire. In fact, many of my friends are thinking of moving somewhere else, and that's the current challenge that the country has now. The very fluid population. Not many people are for sure staying, not for many people are for sure leaving. But the one thing that you should know about Singapore, it is food culture. It is the paradise for anybody who loves food, and hence this.
Okay. Well, we can talk a lot longer, but one of my roles is here to kind of end the discussion, unfortunately. I do recommend everybody to travel to these wonderful countries. It would be a very good experience for everyone to do that. And maybe Lydia and Joanne can be your guides. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for watching.